The moment I laid eyes on her, my heart stopped. Kira Anderson, my college sweetheart from 15 years ago, was standing in my office doorway. She was even more beautiful than I remembered, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, those piercing blue eyes that once held my entire world. I couldn't believe it. Of all the models in San Francisco, how the hell did I end up hiring her? Daphne? Daphne Mitchell? Kira's voice was soft, uncertain. I had no idea you were the fashion editor here. I cleared my throat, trying to regain my composure. Kira, what a surprise, please come in. As she gracefully entered my office, memories flooded back. The ice rink where we first met, the stolen glances, the tentative smiles. I remember being mesmerized by her fluid movements on the ice, her lithe form gliding effortlessly across the frozen surface. It was like watching a swan dance, elegant, ethereal, enchanting. I had been there to write a piece on winter sports for the college paper. Instead, I found myself writing poetry about golden hair and azure eyes. Kira had quite literally skated into my life and my heart. It's been a long time, Kira said, settling into the chair across from me. Her perfume, a hint of vanilla and lavender, wafted across the desk. Gosh, it was the same scent she wore in college. How could she still smell exactly the same? 15 years? I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. You look, well. A small smile played at the corners of her lips. So do you, Daph. The years have been kind. The use of my old nickname sent a shiver down my spine. I tried to focus on the papers in front of me, anything to avoid those captivating eyes. So, welcome to Chic Magazine. We're excited to have you on board for our winter collection shoot. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Though, I must admit, I'm a bit nervous now. I raised an eyebrow. Nervous? You've been modeling for years. Surely this isn't new territory for you. Kira leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper. It's not the modeling that makes me nervous, Daphne. It's this, us, working together. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. There is no us, Kira. That was a long time ago. We're professionals now. She nodded, but I could see the hurt flash in her eyes. Damn it. I hadn't meant to sound so cold. Of course, she said, straightening up. Strictly professional. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of discussed schedules, concept ideas, and contract details. But beneath the veneer of professionalism, tension crackled like static electricity. Every accidental brush of hands as we exchanged documents sent jolts through my system. Each shared glance held volumes of unspoken words. As Kira stood to leave, she paused at the door. For what it's worth, Daphne, I've missed you. Before I could formulate a response, she was gone, leaving me alone with a whirlwind of emotions and the lingering scent of vanilla and lavender. The next few hours were a haze of meetings and phone calls, but my mind kept drifting back to Kira, to stolen kisses behind the bleachers at the ice rink, to lazy Sunday mornings tangled in my dorm room sheets, to tearful goodbyes as we chose careers over love. By the time I made it home that evening, I was exhausted. I poured myself a generous glass of wine and sank onto my couch, finally allowing myself to feel the full weight of the day's events. Kira was back in my life. My first love, my greatest heartbreak, was now my employee. And despite my best efforts to maintain a professional facade, I couldn't deny the spark that still existed between us. As I sipped my wine, I realized with a mix of excitement and dread that this was only the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new temptations, and I had no idea how I was going to navigate this treacherous waters without drowning in the depths of old feelings and new desires. With a sigh, I raised my glass in a silent toast to the universe's twisted sense of humor. Here's to unexpected reunions and complicated emotions, I muttered to my empty apartment. May we all survive the storm ahead. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual, my stomach in knots. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning as memories of Kira mingled with anxiety about our upcoming photo shoot. As I stepped off the elevator, I nearly collided with my assistant, Margot. Whoa, boss, you're here early, she said, juggling a tray of coffee cups. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Just a busy day ahead. Is everything set up for the shoot? Margot nodded, lowering her voice. Yeah, but have you heard the rumors? Word is there might be layoffs coming. My heart sank. Just what we needed. More complications. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Focus on making this shoot perfect. As I entered the studio, my breath caught in my throat. Kira was already there, being prepped by the makeup team. Our eyes met in the mirror, and for a moment, the world seemed to fade away. She looked stunning. Her blonde hair swept up in an elegant updo, her blue eyes smoky and alluring. "Morning, Daphne," she called out, her voice sending shivers down my spine. I cleared my throat. "Good morning, Kira. You look ready." The shoot began, and I watched through the camera lens as Kira transformed. She was no longer the girl I once knew, but a confident, sensual woman who commanded attention. Every pose, every smoldering look sent my heart racing. "Fantastic, Kira," I called out, trying to maintain my professional demeanor. "Now, let's try something a bit more vulnerable." As she shifted her pose, her dress slipped slightly, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of shoulder. Our eyes met again, and I could have sworn I saw a flicker of desire in her gaze. I quickly looked away, my cheeks burning. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of costume changes and camera flashes. By lunchtime, I was a bundle of nerves, torn between my attraction to Kira and my need to keep things professional. As the team broke for lunch, Margot approached me again, her expression worried. "Daphne, I hate to add to your stress, but the budget meeting's been moved up. They want to see you this afternoon." I groaned inwardly. "Thanks, Margot. I'll be ready." The budget meeting was as grim as I'd feared. Words like downsizing and restructuring were thrown around, each one feeling like a punch to the gut. As I left the conference room, my mind was racing. How many people would we lose? Would Kira's contract be at risk? Lost in thought, I didn't notice Kira until we were face to face in the empty hallway. "Daphne, are you okay?" "You look pale," she said, concern etching her beautiful features. Before I could stop myself, I reached out and touched her arm. "It's nothing, just work stuff." Kira stepped closer, her perfume enveloping me. "You know you can talk to me, right? Even if we're just colleagues now." The word colleagues stung more than it should have. I pulled back, straightening my jacket. "Thanks, but I'm fine. We should get back to work." The afternoon dragged on, the weight of potential layoffs hanging over everything. As the sun began to set, I found myself alone in my office, poring over budgets and contracts, desperately seeking a solution. A soft knock at the door startled me. Kira stood there, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Thought you might need this," she said, setting one on my desk. "Thanks," I murmured, too exhausted to maintain my usual walls. Kira perched on the edge of my desk, her presence both comforting and unsettling. "Want to talk about it?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "The magazine's in trouble, budget cuts, possible layoffs. I'm trying to figure out how to save as many jobs as I can." "Including mine?" Kira asked softly. Our eyes met, and suddenly, the air felt charged with unspoken emotions. "Especially yours," I whispered before I could stop myself. Kira leaned in, her hand brushing mine. "Daphne, The shrill ring of my phone shattered the moment. I jerked back, grabbing the receiver. "Daphne Mitchell speaking." As I listened to the voice on the other end, I watched Kira's face fall. She stood up, mouthing "I'll go," and slipped out of my office. I wanted to call her back, to finish whatever was about to happen. But as I hung up the phone, reality came crashing back. I was her boss, the magazine was in crisis, and our past. Well, it was just that, past. Yet as I gathered my things to head home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The careful boundaries I'd built were crumbling, and I wasn't sure if I had the strength, or even the desire to rebuild them. As I stepped into the cool San Francisco night, I realized that tomorrow would bring not just a new day, but a new chapter in my complicated history with Kira Anderson. And despite my best efforts to remain professional, I was both terrified and exhilarated by what might unfold. The next morning, I stumbled into the office, bleary-eyed and caffeine-deprived. I'd spent most of the night tossing and turning, replaying that moment with Kira in my office over and over. As I approached the break room, I heard her laugh, that same melodious sound that used to make my heart skip a beat in college. It still did. I rounded the corner, and there she was, chatting animatedly with a group of interns. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down. Then, as if on cue, my foot caught on the edge of the carpet. I stumbled, my coffee cup flying from my hand. Time resumed its normal pace as hot liquid splashed across my blouse. "Shit!" I hissed, more from embarrassment than pain. Daphne. Kira was at my side in an instant, grabbing napkins. Are you okay? Her hands were on me, dabbing at the stain, and suddenly I was hyper-aware of how close she was. I could smell her perfume, could feel the warmth of her breath. I'm fine, I managed to croak out. Just clumsy. Come on, she said, taking my arm. Let's get you cleaned up. Before I could protest, she was steering me towards the restroom. Once inside, she wet some paper towels and began gently blotting at my blouse. The intimacy of the moment was overwhelming. Kira, you don't have to. Shh, she interrupted. Let me help. Her fingers brushed against my collarbone, and I shivered involuntarily. Our eyes met in the mirror, and I saw a flicker of something, desire, nostalgia, in her gaze. For a moment, I thought she might kiss me. Part of me wanted her to. Instead, she stepped back, a slight flush coloring her cheeks. There, she said softly. Good as new. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and deadlines. But every time I caught a glimpse of Kira, I felt that same electric tension. It was maddening, trying to focus on work when all I could think about was her touch, her smile, the way she used to look at me when we were young and in love. As evening approached, Margot popped her head into my office. Don't forget about the company party tonight, she reminded me. You promised you'd make an appearance. I groaned inwardly. With everything going on, I'd completely forgotten about the party. Thanks, Margot. I'll be there. The party was in full swing when I arrived. The open bar was doing a brisk business, and the dance floor was packed. I made my obligatory rounds, chatting with colleagues and trying to appear more relaxed than I felt. Then I saw her. Kira was wearing a slinky black dress that hugged every curve. She was laughing at something someone had said, her head thrown back, exposing the elegant line of her throat. I couldn't look away. As if sensing my gaze, she turned. Our eyes locked across the crowded room. Slowly, deliberately, she made her way towards me. Dance with me, she said when she reached me. It wasn't a question. Before I could talk myself out of it, I nodded. She took my hand and led me to the dance floor. As we swayed to the music, her body pressed against mine, I felt like I was dreaming. This couldn't be real. Do you remember the last time we danced like this? She murmured in my ear. I did. It was the night before we broke up, at our college graduation party. We had clung to each other then, both knowing it was the end, but neither wanting to let go. Kira, I started, not sure what I was going to say. She pulled back slightly, her blue eyes searching mine. Tell me you don't feel it too, Daphne. Tell me I'm imagining this thing between us. I couldn't lie. Not to her, not to myself. I feel it, I whispered. She leaned in, her lips a breath away from mine. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Just as our lips were about to meet, a drunken colleague stumbled into us, breaking the spell. We jumped apart, both breathing heavily. I need some air, I stammered, fleeing to the balcony. The cool night air helped clear my head, but did nothing to slow my racing heart. What was I doing? She was my employee. I was her boss. This was beyond complicated. Daphne? Kira's voice was soft behind me. I turned to face her. We can't do this, I said, hating the words even as I spoke them. Why not? She challenged. We're both single. We're both adults. What's holding you back? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. It's not that simple. There's the magazine to think about, our careers. Is that really it? She pressed. Or are you just scared? Her words hit home. I was scared, terrified actually, of getting hurt again, of ruining what we had, of taking a chance and having it all fall apart. Maybe I am, I admitted. Aren't you? She stepped closer, her hand coming up to cup my cheek. Of course I am. But some things are worth being scared for. We stood there, on the precipice of something huge, neither of us quite ready to take the leap. Finally, Kira dropped her hand. Think about it, Daphne, she said softly. We have a second chance here. Don't throw it away because you're afraid. With that, she turned and walked back into the party, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the twinkling lights of San Francisco spread out before me. As I watched her go, I realized that no matter what I decided, things between Kira and me would never be the same again. The question was I brave enough to see where this new path might lead? The morning after the party, I woke with a pounding headache and a sense of impending doom. As I stumbled into the office, clutching my coffee like a lifeline, Margot intercepted me with a grim expression. "Emergency meeting in the conference room," she whispered. "It's about the budget cuts." My stomach lurched. This was it, the moment we'd all been dreading. As I entered the conference room, the tension was palpable. Our CEO, a stern-faced woman named Victoria, stood at the head of the table. Her eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of sympathy before her professional mask slipped back into place. "I'll cut to the chase," Victoria began. "We're facing significant budget cuts. We need to reduce our staff by 20% across all departments." The room erupted in murmurs and gasps. I felt the blood drain from my face. 20%. That meant at least 3 people from my team alone. "Daphne," Victoria turned to me, "I need your recommendations for the fashion department by end of day tomorrow." I nodded numbly, my mind already racing. Who could I afford to lose? How could I protect my team? And Kira. Gosh, what about Kira? As I left the meeting, my head spinning, I nearly collided with the woman occupying my thoughts. Kira stood in the hallway, her face pale. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are they really laying people off?" I hesitated, torn between my professional obligation to keep things confidential and my personal desire to be honest with her. "It's complicated," I finally said. "But yes, there will be cuts." Kira's eyes widened. "Am I?" She couldn't finish the sentence. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "I have to review everyone's contracts and performance records. But Kira, I promise I'll do everything I can to." "To what?" she interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "To save my job because we have history, or because you feel something for me?" I glanced around nervously, acutely aware that we were still in a public hallway. "This isn't the place to discuss this," I hissed. "Come to my office." Once inside, I closed the door and turned to face her. Kira stood there, arms crossed, a mixture of fear and defiance in her eyes. She looked so vulnerable, so beautiful, that it took all my willpower not to pull her into my arms. "Kira," I began, "I can't make any promises, but I will fight for you. Not because of our past or whatever this is between us now, but because you're talented and you're an asset to this magazine." She softened slightly at my words. "I believe you, Daphne, but this is my career we're talking about. I can't just sit back and hope for the best." "I know," I sighed, "and I wouldn't expect you to. Just give me some time to figure this out, okay?" Kira nodded, then surprised me by reaching out and squeezing my hand. "Thank you," she said softly before slipping out of my office. The rest of the day passed in a blur of spreadsheets and personnel files. By the time evening rolled around, my eyes were burning and my head was throbbing. I knew I should go home, but the thought of facing my empty apartment was unbearable. Instead, I found myself heading up to the roof. The sun was setting over San Francisco Bay, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. As I leaned against the railing, letting the cool breeze wash over me, I heard footsteps behind me. "I thought I might find you up here." Kira's voice was soft, tentative. I turned to face her, suddenly acutely aware of how alone we were. "Kira, No," she cut me off, stepping closer. "Let me speak first. I've been thinking about this all day, and I need to say it before I lose my nerve." She took a deep breath, her blue eyes locking onto mine. "I know the timing is terrible. I know there are a million reasons why this is a bad idea. But Daphne, I can't ignore what I feel for you. What I've always felt for you." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear over the rush of blood in my ears. "Kira, we can't." "Why not?" she challenged, moving even closer. "Give me one good reason why we can't at least try." "Because I'm terrified." The words burst out of me before I could stop them. "I'm terrified of losing you again, of ruining everything, of making the wrong choice and destroying both our careers in the process." Kira's expression softened. She reached out, her hand gently cupping my cheek. "Oh, Daphne," she murmured, "don't you see? We've already lost so much time. Why waste any more?" And then, before I could form another protest, she kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant, but quickly grew more passionate as years of pent-up longing poured out. I felt myself melting into her, my arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I rested my forehead against hers. "What are we doing?" I whispered. "Living," she replied simply. Finally living. As we stood there, the last rays of sunlight fading around us, I knew that everything had changed. Whatever happened tomorrow, with the layoffs, with our careers, we'd face it together, and for the first time in years, that thought didn't terrify me. It exhilarated me. "So," Kira said, a small smile playing on her lips, "what happens now?" I took a deep breath, feeling as though I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to take a leap into the unknown. "Now," I said, "we figure it out, together." As I leaned in to kiss her again, I silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought Kira back into my life. The road ahead would be challenging, full of obstacles and difficult decisions. But with her by my side, I felt ready to face anything. The next morning, I woke to the sound of rain pattering against my bedroom window. For a moment, I lay there, disoriented, before the events of the previous night came rushing back. Kira, the kiss, the promise of a new beginning. As I got ready for work, a mixture of excitement and anxiety churned in my stomach. How would we navigate this new dynamic at the office? And more pressingly, how was I going to handle the impending layoffs? I arrived at the office earlier than usual, determined to get a head start on the impossible task before me. As I pored over personnel files and budget reports, my door creaked open. I looked up to see Kira standing there, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Thought you could use this," she said softly, setting 1 cup on my desk. Our fingers brushed as I reached for the coffee, sending a jolt of electricity through me. "Thanks," I murmured, acutely aware of how close she was. Kira perched on the edge of my desk, her blue eyes searching my face. "You look stressed. Anything I can do to help?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Unless you can magically increase our budget or make people's jobs redundant, I'm afraid not." She reached out, her hand covering mine. "I'm here for you, Daphne, whatever you need." The tenderness in her voice nearly undid me. I wanted nothing more than to lose myself in her embrace, to forget about the difficult decisions looming ahead. But I couldn't. Not here. Not now. "Kira," I said gently, pulling my hand away. "We need to be careful, at least until I figure out how to handle this situation with the layoffs." A flicker of hurt crossed her face, but she nodded. "I understand. Just don't shut me out, okay?" As she left my office, I felt a pang of regret, but I knew I had to focus. People's livelihoods were at stake. The day dragged on, a parade of tense meetings and difficult conversations. By late afternoon, the stress was beginning to take its toll. I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I stepped out of the building, the rain had turned into a light drizzle. I turned up my collar and set off down the street, lost in thought. So lost, in fact, that I didn't notice the taxi pulling up to the curb until I heard a familiar voice. "Daphne, wait up." I turned to see Kira leaning out of the cab window, waving at me. "Where are you off to?" she called. "Nowhere in particular," I admitted. "Just needed some air." She smiled, that radiant smile that never failed to make my heart skip a beat. "Hop in, I'll give you a lift back to the office." Against my better judgment, I climbed into the cab. As we pulled away from the curb, the rain started to pick up again, drumming against the roof of the car. We sat in silence for a moment, the tension between us palpable. Then, as if moved by some unseen force, we both turned to each other at the same time. "Kira, Daphne, listen." We laughed, the awkwardness broken. "You first," I said. Kira took a deep breath. "I know things are complicated right now, but I want you to know that I'm all in. Whatever happens with work, with us, I'm here." Her words washed over me like a warm wave, breaking down the walls I'd been trying so hard to maintain. Before I could second-guess myself, I leaned in and kissed her. It was different from our kiss on the rooftop. That had been tentative, exploratory. This was passionate, urgent. Years of pent-up longing poured out as we clung to each other, oblivious to the world outside. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I realized the cab had stopped. We were back at the office. "Well," the cab driver chuckled. "That's one way to pass the time in traffic." Mortified, I fumbled for my wallet, but Kira beat me to it, handing the driver a generous tip. "For the show," she said with a wink. As we stepped out into the rain, I felt lighter than I had in days. Kira reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. "So," she said, a mischievous glint in her eye, "your place or mine after work?" Reality came crashing back. "Kira, we can't, not yet. There's still so much to figure out with work and... She silenced me with a quick kiss. I know, I'm just teasing. Well, mostly teasing. We stood there for a moment, rain soaking through our clothes, neither of us wanting to break the spell. Finally, Kira squeezed my hand. Come on, boss lady, let's go save some jobs. As we walked back into the office, hand in hand, I felt a surge of determination. I didn't know how, but I was going to find a way to make this work. All of it, the magazine, the budget cuts, and most importantly, my relationship with Kira. But our moment of bliss was short-lived. As soon as we stepped off the elevator, Margot rushed up to us, her face pale. Daphne, thank goodness you're back. There's been a development. My stomach dropped. What kind of development? Margot glanced nervously at Kira before continuing. Someone filed an anonymous complaint with HR about you two. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. As I looked at Kira, I saw my own fear reflected in her eyes. Whatever came next, I realized, would determine not just our future, but the future of everyone at the magazine. The storm I'd been dreading had finally arrived, and we were standing right in its path. The next few days were a blur of closed-door meetings and hushed conversations. The anonymous complaint had thrown a wrench into an already complicated situation. As I sat in my office, staring at the stack of personnel files I still needed to review for potential layoffs, I couldn't help but feel like everything was spiraling out of control. A soft knock on my door jolted me from my thoughts. Come in, I called, half expecting to see Kira. Instead, Victoria, our CEO, stepped into the room. Daphne, she said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. We need to talk. My heart sank. This was it. I was about to be fired, I was sure of it. Victoria settled into the chair across from me, her expression unreadable. I'm not going to beat around the bush, she began. The situation with you and Kira is problematic. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but she held up a hand to stop me. Let me finish. Under normal circumstances, this would be a clear violation of company policy. However, she paused, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. These are not normal circumstances. I blinked, confused. I don't understand. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Daphne, do you know why I hired you as our fashion editor? The sudden change in topic threw me. Because of my experience? My vision for the magazine? She nodded. Yes, but also because I saw something of myself in you. The same drive, the same passion. And, as it turns out, the same predicament I found myself in years ago. My eyes widened as understanding dawned. You mean... Yes, Victoria confirmed. 20 years ago, I fell in love with my assistant editor. We tried to keep it professional, tried to ignore our feelings, but in the end, love won out. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small photo, sliding it across the desk to me. It showed a younger Victoria, arm in arm with another woman, both beaming at the camera. That's Sarah, Victoria said softly. We've been together for 2 decades now, and you know what? It made me a better editor, a better leader. Because I had someone who truly understood the pressures of the job, someone who could support me in ways no one else could. I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. But what about the complaint? The company policy? Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Policies can be amended. As for the complaint, well, let's just say I have a pretty good idea who filed it and they'll be dealt with. She leaned forward, her gaze intense. Here's what I propose. You step down as Kira's direct supervisor. We'll reassign her to another editor for the duration of her contract. That way, there's no conflict of interest. I nodded, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. And the layoffs? Victoria's expression turned serious. That's where it gets tricky. We still need to cut costs, Daphne, but I have faith in your ability to find a creative solution. One that hopefully minimizes job losses. As Victoria stood to leave, she paused at the door. Oh, and Daphne, don't let fear hold you back. Love like this doesn't come along every day. Trust me, I know. With that, she was gone, leaving me stunned and overwhelmed. I sat there for a long moment, trying to process everything that had just happened. Then, almost in a daze, I picked up my phone and texted Kira, "Meet me on the roof, now." 5 minutes later, I burst through the roof access door to find Kira already waiting, her face etched with concern. Daphne, what's going on? Are we in trouble? Are you? I cut her off with a kiss, pouring all my relief, joy, and love into it. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I rested my forehead against hers. We're okay, I whispered. We're going to be okay. As I explained Victoria's proposal, Kira's eyes grew wide with disbelief and hope. So we can really do this? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. We can be together? I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. It won't be easy. There are still challenges ahead. But yes, we can be together. Kira laughed, a sound of pure joy, and pulled me in for another kiss. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the San Francisco skyline spread out before us, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. But our moment of bliss was short-lived. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket, reminding me of the work still to be done. I have to go, I said reluctantly. I need to figure out how to save as many jobs as possible. Kira squeezed my hand. Want some help? 2 heads are better than 1, after all. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. You know what? That's not a bad idea. We spent the next several hours holed up in my office, poring over budgets and brainstorming ideas. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, Kira suddenly sat up straight. Wait a minute, she said, excitement creeping into her voice. What if we... She launched into an explanation, her words tumbling out faster and faster as the idea took shape. It was bold, risky even, but the more she talked, the more I realized it might just work. By the time she finished, I was grinning from ear to ear. Kira Anderson, I said, shaking my head in amazement. You might just have saved this magazine. She blushed, a hint of her old shyness peeking through. We saved it together. As we gathered our things to leave, exhausted but exhilarated, I couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed in just a few short weeks. We still had a long road ahead of us, presenting our plan to Victoria, implementing the changes, navigating our new relationship in the workplace. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly hopeful about the future. So, Kira said as we stepped into the elevator, your place or mine? This time I didn't hesitate. Mine, I replied, pulling her close. Definitely mine. As the elevator doors closed, I silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought Kira back into my life. The journey ahead might be challenging, but with her by my side, I was ready to face anything. The morning light filtered through my bedroom curtains, casting a warm glow on Kira's sleeping form beside me. I allowed myself a moment to drink in the sight of her, marveling at how quickly she had become an integral part of my life again. But the blissful bubble we'd been living in for the past week was about to burst. Today was the day we'd present our restructuring plan to Victoria and the board. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Kira, and padded to the kitchen to start the coffee. As I waited for it to brew, I ran through the presentation in my head one more time. It was risky, unconventional even, but it was our best shot at saving jobs and revitalizing the magazine. Morning, beautiful, Kira's sleepy voice came from behind me. She wrapped her arms around my waist, planting a soft kiss on my neck. I leaned into her embrace, savoring the moment. Ready for today? She squeezed me tighter. As ready as I'll ever be. We've got this, staff. An hour later, we were standing outside the conference room, both of us fidgeting nervously with our portfolios. Just before we entered, Kira grabbed my hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Together? She whispered. I nodded, drawing strength from her touch. Together. The room fell silent as we walked in. Victoria sat at the head of the table, flanked by board members and executives. I took a deep breath and launched into our presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to propose a bold new direction for Chic magazine, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Our plan not only addresses the budget constraints we're facing, but also positions us for future growth in an ever-changing media landscape. As I outlined our proposal, a hybrid print digital model, strategic partnerships with up-and-coming designers, and a restructuring that would minimize layoffs, I could see the skepticism on some faces slowly giving way to interest. Kira jumped in seamlessly, her passion evident, as she detailed how we could leverage social media and influencer partnerships to reach a younger demographic without alienating our core readership. By embracing these changes, she concluded, we're not just saving Chic magazine, we're revolutionizing it. As we finished, the room fell silent. I held my breath, searching Victoria's face for any hint of her thoughts. After what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "It's ambitious," she said slowly. "Risky even, but—" A smile spread across her face. "I love it. Well done, both of you." The relief that washed over me was almost dizzying. As the board members began to discuss implementation details, I caught Kira's eye across the table. The pride and love I saw there made my heart swell. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of meetings and phone calls. By late afternoon, word had spread throughout the office about the new direction we were taking. The mood was a mix of excitement and apprehension, but overall, people seemed relieved that wholesale layoffs had been avoided. As I stood in front of the assembled staff, Kira by my side, I felt a surge of pride. Change can be scary, I told them, but it can also be invigorating. We have a chance to create something truly special here, and I need every one of you to make it happen. The applause that followed was tentative at first, but quickly grew more enthusiastic. As people began to disperse, chattering excitedly about the new plans, Margot approached us. "So," she said, a knowing smirk on her face, "I guess congratulations are in order, for the plan, of course, and other things." I felt a blush creeping up my neck. "Margot, She held up a hand, cutting me off. "Save it, boss. I'm happy for you, both of you. Just, maybe ease up on the googly eyes during meetings, yeah?" As she walked away, Kira and I dissolved into laughter, the tension of the day finally breaking. "Googly eyes?" Kira gasped between giggles. "Is that what I've been doing?" I pulled her close, not caring who saw. "Absolutely. It's very distracting." Our laughter faded as we gazed at each other, the reality of our situation sinking in. We'd done it. We'd saved the magazine, saved jobs, and somehow managed to be together through it all. "What now?" Kira asked softly. I smiled, taking her hand. "Now we celebrate. Grab your coat." An hour later, we were standing at the edge of the very same ice rink where we'd first met all those years ago. Kira raised an eyebrow as I handed her a pair of skates. "Seriously? It's been years since I've been on the ice," she protested. I grinned, already lacing up my own skates. "Come on, Anderson, show me if you've still got those moves that first caught my eye." As we glided onto the ice, hand in hand, I was struck by how right it felt, like we'd come full circle, back to where it all began, but with the wisdom and perspective that only time experience could bring. Kira, true to form, quickly found her rhythm on the ice. She spun and twirled, her movements as graceful as I remembered. As I watched her, bathed in the soft glow of the rink lights, I felt a rush of emotion so strong, it almost took my breath away. When she skated back to me, cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling, I pulled her close. "I love you," I said softly, the words feeling both monumental and completely natural. "I think I've loved you all along." Kira's smile was radiant. "I love you too, Daphne. Always have, always will." As we kissed, there on the ice where our story began, I felt a sense of coming home. Whatever challenges lay ahead, at work, in our relationship, in life, I knew we'd face them together. Later that night, as we lay tangled in my sheets, Kira traced lazy patterns on my skin. "You know," she mused, "for two people who were so scared of taking risks, we sure did jump into the deep end." I chuckled, pulling her closer. Sometimes, the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. As I drifted off to sleep, Kira's warmth beside me, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For second chances, for unexpected twists of fate, and for the courage to embrace love when it comes around again. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures in our personal and professional lives. But for now, in this moment, everything was perfect. And that was more than enough. 6 months flew by in a whirlwind of change and growth. The new direction of Chic magazine had breathed fresh life into our offices, and the energy was palpable. As I walked through the bustling newsroom, I couldn't help but smile at the transformation. Screens displayed real-time social media engagement stats alongside traditional layout boards, a perfect blend of old and new. Kira had become the face of our digital revolution, her natural charisma translating beautifully to video content and live streams. She'd just wrapped up a meeting with our latest celebrity cover star when she caught my eye across the room. Even after all these months, my heart still skipped a beat when she smiled at me. "How'd it go?" I asked as she approached. "Nailed it," she grinned, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "She's on board for the interactive spread we pitched." I beamed with pride. That's my girl. As we walked to my office, I marveled at how seamlessly we'd managed to blend our personal and professional lives. It hadn't been without its challenges, of course. There were days when we butted heads over creative decisions, nights when work stress spilled over into our home life. But we'd learned to navigate it all, stronger together than we ever were apart. "So," Kira said as we settled into my office, "are you ready for the big reveal tonight?" I took a deep breath, excitement and nerves battling in my stomach. Tonight was the launch party for our redesigned winter issue, the true test of all our hard work these past months. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied. "You?" Kira reached across the desk, taking my hand in hers. "With you by my side, I'm ready for anything." Hours later, we stood side by side at the entrance of the venue, greeting guests as they arrived. The space had been transformed into a winter wonderland, complete with artificial snow and twinkling lights. It was magical, but nothing compared to the woman standing next to me. Kira was stunning in a sleek silver gown that caught the light with every movement. I couldn't help but remember that first editorial meeting, how I'd tried so hard to maintain a professional distance. Now, I couldn't imagine my life without her. As the party was in full swing, Victoria took the stage to make the official announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice rang out, silencing the crowd, "I'm thrilled to present the new face of Chic magazine." The covers were unveiled to gasps and applause. Our bold new design was a hit, blending classic elegance with modern edge. As Victoria continued her speech, praising the team's hard work and innovative spirit, I felt Kira's hand slip into mine. "We did it," she whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I squeezed her hand, my own emotions threatening to overflow. We did. Later, as the party wound down, Kira and I snuck away to a quiet corner. The San Francisco skyline twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a perfect backdrop to our moment of triumph. "You know," Kira mused, wrapping her arms around my waist, "a year ago, I never would have imagined this. Us, here, like this." I leaned into her embrace, savoring the warmth of her body against mine. "Funny how life works out, isn't it?" She hummed in agreement, then pulled back slightly, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Speaking of life working out, I have a surprise for you." Before I could question her, Kira was down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from a hidden pocket in her gown. My breath caught in my throat as she opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Daphne Mitchell," she began, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "You've been my first love, my second chance, and my forever. Will you marry me?" For a moment I was speechless, overwhelmed by the rush of emotions. Then, laughing through my own tears, I pulled her to her feet. "Yes," I breathed. 1,000 times, yes. As we kissed, sealing our promise to each other, I felt as though my heart might burst with happiness. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Apparently, our little corner wasn't as private as we'd thought. Victoria was the first to reach us, enveloping us both in a warm hug. "About damn time," she chuckled. "Congratulations, you two." The rest of the night passed in a blur of congratulations and celebrations. As we finally made our way home in the early hours of the morning, I couldn't stop staring at the ring on my finger, still hardly believing it was real. "What are you thinking?" Kira asked softly as we cuddled in bed, the first light of dawn peeking through the curtains. I turned to face her, struck once again by how beautiful she was, inside and out. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," I replied. "To have found you, lost you, and found you again. To be building this life with you, both at work and at home." Kira's smile was radiant as she leaned in to kiss me. "We're just getting started, love," she murmured against my lips. As we drifted off to sleep, tangled in each other's arms, I felt a profound sense of peace. Life had thrown us plenty of curveballs, and I was sure there would be more to come. But with Kira by my side, I was ready to face whatever the future held. Our story, like the magazine we'd reinvented together, was a blend of the old and the new. A classic love story reimagined for a modern world. And as I closed my eyes, Kira's steady heartbeat against my chest, I knew that the best chapters were still to come.